My name is Lisa, and I want to share the long journey of how I became fluent in English. It wasn't an easy path, but looking back, every challenge I faced helped shape the person I am today. Let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in a small town where almost everyone spoke only our native language. English wasn't something we heard often, except maybe in movies or songs. But even then, we didn't understand much of it. My parents weren't fluent in English, and at school, the English lessons were very basic. We learned a few words like apple, dog, cat, and some greetings like hello or good morning. But no one really spoke it, so I didn't think it was important. But that changed when I turned 12. I remember the day clearly. My cousin Anne, who had been living abroad, came to visit us. She had spent years studying in an English-speaking country, and she spoke the language fluently. The moment she walked into our house, I could hear the difference in her accent and the way she spoke so confidently. I was in awe. It was like she had a secret power. And I wanted that power too. One evening, I sat down with her, and we talked about her life abroad. She told me stories about her friends from different countries, how she could watch movies without subtitles, and read books that I could only dream of reading. I was fascinated, and that night, I made a decision. I was going to learn English, and I was going to become as fluent as she was. At first, I had no idea where to start. I only knew the basics from school, and trying to learn on my own seemed overwhelming. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I started small. I got hold of some children's books in English, ones with simple words and pictures. I would spend hours looking up words in a dictionary, trying to understand each sentence. It was slow and frustrating. Sometimes I'd only get through a single page in an hour, but I kept at it. The first big challenge came when I tried to watch a movie in English. I chose a popular movie that everyone was talking about, but without subtitles, it felt like I was listening to gibberish. I couldn't keep up with the fast speech, and I felt like giving up. But instead of quitting, I decided to take a different approach. I watched the same movie over and over again. Each time, I picked up a little more. First, I caught a few words, then phrases, and slowly, the scenes began to make sense. It was exhausting, but it was working. As my vocabulary grew, I realized I needed to practice speaking. This was by far the scariest part for me. I was terrified of making mistakes and sounding silly. No one in my town spoke English, and I didn't have anyone to practice with. I spent weeks just talking to myself in front of the mirror, practicing simple conversations. I would pretend I was ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions. It felt awkward at first, but it helped me gain some confidence. Then, something amazing happened. I discovered an online community where people from all over the world were learning English just like me. There were group chats, video calls, and discussion forums where we could practice with each other. At first, I was too nervous to join the video calls, but I started by typing in the chat. Slowly, I worked up the courage to speak. I remember the first time I spoke during a call. My voice was shaky, and I made so many mistakes, but no one made fun of me. They were all learning too, and they encouraged me to keep going. Little by little, I became more comfortable speaking. I made friends in the group, and we would practice regularly. One of my friends was from Brazil, another from Japan, and another from France. It was incredible how, despite being from different parts of the world, English allowed us to communicate and understand each other. We would talk about everything: our cultures, our favorite foods, our dreams. The more I practiced, the better I got. I didn't just stop with online conversations. I began journaling in English. Every day, I would write about my day, even if it was just a few sentences. Sometimes I wrote about my dreams, my worries, or even the weather. This helped me improve my writing skills and made me more comfortable with forming sentences. The biggest test of my English skills came when I decided to take an advanced English course online. I was nervous about enrolling because I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I knew I had to challenge myself. The course was intense, and it pushed me to learn faster. We had to write essays, give presentations, and participate in group discussions. I made many mistakes, but with each mistake, I learned something new. During this time, I fell in love with reading English books. I started with simple novels, but as my vocabulary grew, I was able to tackle more complex stories. I remember the first time I finished reading a full-length novel in English. It was The Secret Garden, and though it took me weeks to get through, the feeling of accomplishment was unlike anything I had felt before. After that, I couldn't stop. I read everything I could get my hands on, from classics to modern fiction. By the time I turned 18, I realized something amazing. I had achieved my goal. I could now have full conversations in English without feeling nervous. I could watch movies, read books, and even write essays confidently. Learning English had opened up so many doors for me. I applied for a scholarship to study abroad, and thanks to my English skills, I was accepted. I spent 2 years studying in an English-speaking country, where I made lifelong friends and gained even more fluency. Looking back, the journey wasn't easy. There were many times when I felt like giving up, especially in the beginning, when everything felt so hard. But with patience, practice, and determination, I was able to achieve something I once thought was impossible. Now, I encourage others who are learning English to never give up, no matter how difficult it seems at first. Fluency doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But with each step forward, you get closer to your goal. I am proud of how far I've come, and I hope my story can inspire others to keep going, even when the road feels long. If I can do it, so can you.
Don't forget to subscribe for more stories.